things shook out, I thought, the best way possible for the Carolina Hurricanes against the Islanders on Monday.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what you want. Look, let's run down this list, and I think the NCAA tournament has taught us this as well. There's no such thing as an easy matchup anymore.
Nah.
There's matchups you should win or favorable matchups, but the way that the East is, every team that you were going to face, it's going to be a monster. And I even think this might be crazy, Giglio. I think that Boston can be pushed. I don't know if Florida can do it if they're not 100% healthy, but if you're Carolina, looking at the teams you stack up against, the Islanders are the one team where you look at and you say, all right, they do stack up well because it's styles make fights. The Carolina Hurricanes style gives what the Islanders want to do fits. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Joe.
Who's starting on Monday?
That's a good question. All right. I
have thoughts. I'm curious.
I do too, and I'm going to keep doing this until I'm either proven right or crazy, which is probably the latter. But, everybody always says in hockey, you got to have the guy. You got to have a guy. The Canes have had a rotation that's led them to 52 wins this year. And people will say that you cannot win a Stanley Cup unless you have one goalie who carries the water. Well, the only reason why everybody says that is nobody's ever tried a rotation.
Sure.
Or at least if they did, they didn't get the results that you wanted, so that's why you can downplay it. So I would say Monday I would expect Frederik Andersen to start.
Really?
I will not be surprised if it's Antti Raanta with how well he's played. The reasoning behind it is whatever the Canes do, they can continue with their rotation and say that that's what they were going to do. They started the season with Frederik Andersen. They're going to start the playoffs with Frederik Andersen. I like the on that. But they could either way. They could start Antti Raanta and go the other way.
I'm just trying to remember because the goalie sequence and now even you probably are struggling with it because every year they're trying to figure this thing out.
Well,
you know what I mean?
But if we're going to be honest though, Frederik Andersen was brought in to be the guy.
Right. But I think with Rod and Don Waddell and Tom Dundon, the consistency is you have a Real Talk Express.
Right.
Whether it's arbitration day, whether it's the start of the playoffs, whether it's after in a rare losing streak during the regular season, when the money's on the table, they've been consistent. That they're always honest with that guy. And I don't know Freddie. Maybe I shouldn't even call him Freddie. You're calling him Frederik. But you got to sit him down and say, hey, man, what you did and what you've done recently isn't good enough. And we're not here to be good enough. We're here to be great. We're here to win the cup. And the way that Antti Raanta has played, particularly at home, gives you a chance to win the cup. So I just think they've been consistent with how honest they are, whether it's Curtis McElhinney, Peter Mrazek, Alex Nedeljkovic, Kochetkov playing last year, right? Like, I think they've been consistent. I don't think there's any question. Now, I could be wrong. You are a lot closer to this situation than I am. I could be wrong, but I feel like the Real Talk Express to Freddie is, yes, you were paid to come here and do this, but we're all here for one reason, and it is not to lose to the Islanders.
Although the real talk could then be, we brought you here to do this, so we're giving you game one and go from there. That's why
that would be the sell. If you were going to sell it to me, they go to Freddie Andersen on Monday because they're showing them like, hey, look, we believe in you to be the guy, so we're going to look past what happened last night and we're just going to go ahead and go with what we think.
But I mean, I'm serious when I say this. We can be sitting here Monday and it could be Freddie Andersen and he will get a win on Monday. And then I wouldn't be shocked if they go to Antti Raanta on Wednesday because that's what they've been doing. Yeah. And they stay very much to Giglio's point. They stay true to what they do. They're not coming off of that. So it's going to be interesting. The good thing about this for me is I don't think that there is in fans' minds, I know there's always a wrong choice.
Of course.
But I don't think with the team and their thought process through this the whole year that there is a wrong choice with who starts on Monday.
Okay.
And that's a good position to be in because the other thing, the team plays the same. This isn't like two quarterbacks in football where, one guy runs an offense this way, the other guy, it's better suited to run it this way. The team plays the same no matter who's behind them.
They're not going Tebow rules, is what you're telling me.
Exactly.
So what you need to sell then on Monday is that this is game 83.
Sure.
regular season like playoff games, Mike. That's what
last night it felt like game 1 to me.
It did actually have that playoff like. So let's get away from what happens, because we can talk about Monday.
Sure.
On Monday, because I do feel that now that the division has been won again, people can take a breather, take a step back, and recognize, you know what, when we're not clenching butts and freaking out about what this means for the Stanley Cup and everything else, it's actually pretty damn impressive what they were able to do this year, given the team they thought they were going to have and the team they ended up having.
Yeah, and look, they thought that Max Pacioretty was going to be a big part of this. In the 5 games that you saw, you're like, well, there it is, and this is going to be great. And then he re-injures his Achilles, and you're like, okay, now what? And the worst thing that you can do is when an injury happens is go out and panic and make a move to bring in somebody. I try to
certainly overpay for a move, which, given the price for Timo Meier, I think was overpaid.
And let me know what he's produced so far for New Jersey.
That's fair.
Mean, it comes into the trade deadline. The 2 biggest panic days in the NHL is free agency, which normally is July 1st, where somebody's going to overpay.
June 30th.
Yeah, whenever you want.
Gosh, June
25th. It's true. And on trade deadline day, that somebody feels you got to go out. If you go and take a look, no Stanley Cup champion has really gone out on the deadline day and made a huge move since the Canes in 2006 with Mark Recchi.
Yeah. And I guess, and sometimes in nostalgia, you tend to forget why they make the moves when they make the moves, right? For me, and we asked Tom Dundon, this owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, around the time, it was actually the day of the outdoor game, with the trade deadline looming. For me, it's almost psychology of, are you signaling to the team, we are all in? And they had $10 million of cap space to play with. That tells me, all right, you're going to go all in. Now, the argument from Dundon, it's been consistent messaging from him and Don Waddell, is that we're not going to mortgage the future.
Right.
They don't view their window closing, even though we kind of see where the restricted free agency and a lot of contracts coming up. We kind of look at this going, there's going to be some serious changes over the next couple of years. What are you going to do with the group that you have now? Might as well try to cash it in. They're of the mind, and that's fine. I until I'm proven wrong, they've been right. They believe that what they're doing is sustainable.
I think that if there was a big move to be made, and again, you got to make the other team trade with you.
Yeah,
you can't make the San Jose Sharks trade you Timo Meier if they feel that the better deal is coming from New Jersey.
Right.
The thing for me, the 2 pieces, and this is revisionist history, and I was not sitting in the general manager's room on the 4th floor being consulted about who should we trade for. But the 2 big chips that I looked at, if you're the Hurricanes, that you could have maybe gone after and brought in, one was Vladimir Tarasenko in St. Louis, but the Rangers moved quick on that.
Got that.
And then
they got that for a good price.
And they did. And exactly, they did. And part of that, too, was I think St. Louis kind of was looking at where they were at and maybe change the room up a little bit and move on from there. And they knew that they weren't going to re-sign Tarasenko, so just whatever the best offer could be at that point. And then Patrick Kane, and Patrick Kane comes out and says, well, I'm only going to go play for the Rangers.
So Rangers is the spot, right?
So, and that's where that $10 million of cap space where you could have looked at one player or one big name, it goes there. Now, by the way, Kane's been fine with the Rangers. Tarasenko's been very good with the Rangers, but those were the names. And you look at everything else that got moved at the deadline.
Yeah, Horvat goes to the Islanders, who now you'll see in the playoffs, but
you couldn't get the Jim Rutherford sleeper.
You couldn't get the first round pick, fine, but I think any package for Horvat was going to include Seth Jarvis,
right?
And then which I'm not doing, and then you got to turn around and give the guy an 8-year contract, which the Islanders did, but who the heck knows if he's really worth that, particularly given the hierarchy the Canes already have.
And the other thing on Meier, just to go back to that, because I think that
New
was
Jersey vastly overpaid for him.
But I think that's the same thing. But with Timo Meier, he is due a $10 million qualifying offer this year. So there's no guarantee that New Jersey is going to re-sign him or give him that qualifying offer. I think they're going to have to. You'd hopefully hammer something out before you can get there. But again, the asking prices at that time of year, and
Tampa for the defenseman from Nashville that they gave up 8 assets.
A forward, Tanner Jeannot got hurt, and they gave up 5 picks. 2 of them are premiums. But I got to give Tampa and Julian Brisebois credit, they are very much in the LA Rams mindset of forget them picks.
Yeah.
They're all about winning now.
Yeah. And if you had that guy, you would be too.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
that's just it. It's again, I try to work PG when I can. But I looked at everything that the Canes did, and then what they did. They needed to improve the power play, and that's what Shane Gostisbehere can do. And again, it's nothing that was seismic that moved the needle, but this is an organization that, if you take a look, folks, the last 5 years, everything they've done is with a plan, and it fits within that plan.
It's worked.
And
in the regular season.
And the off season, they added Brent Burns and Max Pacioretty. Those are two huge moves.
Yeah.
And you build your team now in that time frame.
Well,
at the draft in July, when you make those trades or when you can sign a free
Burns
agent.
scoring twice last night is the biggest indicator to me. We've already forgotten. Dougie Hamilton, great regular season player, struggled in the playoffs. Tony DeAngelo last year comes in, is a commensurate replacement for Hamilton, certainly at a cheaper price, but in the playoffs was a liability in the second round against his former team. So now if Burns is actually the guy who Dougie was during the regular season, all of the sudden, I think you've said this, Tripp has said this, I know Adam has said this, when you lose Pacioretty, you lose Svechnikov, my simple hockey mind, I look at Jordan Staal. But you guys keep saying the same thing. Look at the production from Burns, look at the production from Pesce. The defense is actually what's picking up the scoring slack.
Brady Shea, 18 goals this year. And he's the guy who I look at on the blue line. The blue line scored 59 goals. That led the NHL in combined goals from the defense. This is a group that's a collective. And there's one thing, and it just goes back to my mind about when Andrei Svechnikov, they announced he's done for the year. Rod Brind'Amour said it, and he said it best. If we were counting on one guy for us to win the cup, then we weren't going to win the cup.
Right.
And I believe that. The one thing where in Andrei Svechnikov's absence that hurts, what he delivers that's unique and special. Yes, he scores goals, but he is the one forward that the Canes have who's built like a locomotive, and he steams into the corners, and he's the guy who in a 5, 6, 7 game series, defensemen get tired of getting hit by. When they go into the corner and their clock speeds up a little bit more and they're going to turn over the puck, and that's going to lead to a grade A chance. So, again, you take a look at where the Canes are at. That's where you lose that. You lose the Pacioretty thing is the one thing that I keep going back to. You looked at how they were
identified
playing,
a problem you had.
And they identified it, and they
without
did it.
the puck, basically.
But you only had him for 5 games. That's why if you were going to go and retcon the trade deadline, what were you really replacing with the $10 million in cap space? Because it's not like you really understood what you had in Max Pacioretty. They had been successful without him. They only played like 5 games with him.
True, but I think that they had the idea of it was a big body who could score goals, help the power play.
Sure.
An older guy too.
But again, my point is that I understand what you're saying in that they knew what they were getting. They knew what they were looking forward to bringing to the table. But since they never had it and they were used to playing without it, it wasn't that big of an adjustment.
Exactly. But to my point about when they got Max Pacioretty versus the trade deadline, they literally got him for nothing.
True.
For nothing.
True.
They got him because
an older guy who knew what his role was too. To your point about Timo Meier going to New Jersey, now all of a sudden you're in the Aho boat of I'm going to score 3 times every time I'm on the ice. Like you're gripping it way too tight.
Which we'll close this segment on Sebastian Aho. I mean, look, I think it's great that the other players are stepping up. Yep. When Rod Brind'Amour lit into the team after the loss against when they lost Buffalo. Thank you. When they lost to Buffalo and he lit into the team, or as vocal as he might be into the media. They responded, but it was the other guys who responded, the complementary players who responded. Now, the Canes aren't going to win without those guys doing what they've done all the season, but the playoffs are a different beast. And the thing that has been consistent with the Canes' exit is that the team's dudes, other team's dudes have been better than who the Canes are supposed to have as the dudes. And I'm looking directly at Sebastian Aho right now, who seems to be going through it.
No, I mean, that you're always going to go into this, and for me, the playoffs are, you expect your stars, they're going to do what they do. Like Edmonton knows what Connor McDavid's going to do.
Right.
And that's just the case. Sebastian Aho, he understands now he is not judged on scoring 30-plus goals in the regular season and being a point-per-game player in the regular season. He is now judged on, okay, what are you doing in the playoffs? And if there is one guy who I think that will not be pressure that deters him or crumbles him. It's him because he is one of the most competitive human beings you will ever be around. And I think that he's going to look at this series and be like, all right, this is my opportunity to pick up the scoring slack. He doesn't have to be the guy, to what Joe pointed out correctly, but
it's crazy that he's 25.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's still a baby.
It's 25. It's again like Jesperi Kotkaniemi's 22,
Yeah.
and people in Montreal, they've condemned him since I think the 1970s.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when I look at Aho, by the end of I was hoping that one played, and it did. It was a little bit of a joke grenade.
Yeah.
For Sebastian Aho, at the end of every playoff series, he has to be the leading scorer for the Canes.
Yes.
For people to then say, "Oh, okay, well here we go."
Yeah, I want to see a little bit more out of my neighbor. I'm just
25.
saying. He's just 25. He's just 25. Mike Maniscalco, Canes play-by-play, hanging out
Maybe
with
it's you keeping him up at night if you're the neighbor. I haven't.
Trust me. Our neighborhood's very, very quiet. It has nothing to do with me. It's not like I'm knocking on his door saying, "Hey, can I use the sauna today?"
And are you playing Sonic Youth at 1 a.m?
No. My backyard speakers. I don't think he can hear my backyard speakers from down the street.